If you're ready to prove you're one of the fastest sim racers in the Bay Area and win free simulator time, then the Drive Sims Hot Lap Challenge is for you. I'm here to give you the skills, the track knowledge, and the bravery to come out on top in our leaderboard for our Formula 4 time trial. Let's lock in as we get ready for a new Hot Lap Challenge at Brands Hatch. To give you a little bit of history, the racing circuit Brands Hatch came into being when Kent-based farmer Harry White allowed a group of cyclists to use his land as a temporary circuit almost 100 years ago. Cyclists would soon be replaced by motorcyclists, and after the Second World War was over, the course was paved with tarmac to allow for road racing to take place. The course evolved over time, gaining new sections, faster lap records, and a storied list of drivers as time went on. Jim Clark, Jack Brabham, and Triple Crown winner Graham Hill are only 3 of the now hundreds of drivers who can tie part of their legacy back to this course in some way. Just about all of the corners and hills on the circuit are named after esteemed racers, and the Brands Hatch name has been synonymous with English motor racing for the last 6 decades. It hosted Grand Prix races on and off from the 1960s to the 80s, had a renaissance of touring car racing in the 90s during the Super Touring era, and has been a part of racing game culture for many years, thanks to titles like TOCA Race Driver and Need for Speed Shift. Brands Hatch is an absolute classic venue in the realm of motorsports. A fairly approachable layout that packs a roller coaster ride into one lap, giving our drivers plenty to think about going from one turn to the next. It's also one of the perfect venues to experience our haptic simulators, with the car pitching, rolling, lifting, and dropping as you traverse the crests and compressions of the course. With less than 10 turns on the full GP layout, you don't have to stress about remembering the track as much, since each lap passes by in less than a minute and a half. Most corners will also be relatively fast thanks to the car of choice, with only 3 curves requiring heavy braking. We'll come back to look at the track in greater detail soon, but let's head down to the garage and look at the vehicle for this month's Hot Lap. Formula 4 cars constitute the first step that many drivers take into single-seaters with wings and slicks, and because many regional series use these cars, the formula has pretty much spread across the world. The reason this is a great stepping stone to more advanced formula like F1 can be tied to the low power and weight of the cars, tipping the scales at less than half the mass of most cars on the road nowadays, and being one of the lightest cars you can race outright. Even with less than 200 horsepower, the cars still pack a strong power-to-weight ratio, and generate lots of downforce to assist the car in high-speed corners. They also make for really close racing between drivers of equal skill levels, so bring in your friends if you have something you want to prove on track, or want to get faster. You can take a pretty aggressive approach entering corners with this car, but there's a fine line between being below the limit and going past it and crashing. Make sure you are confident with your steering, brake, and throttle inputs, but don't overslow the car, because once you lose momentum, it takes longer to build it back up. So let me show you how I look at the course layout in our track breakdown. Make sure to use your warm-up lap to get a good visual sense of the track, starting out slow and understanding how well the car brakes and turns before speeding up. As you come across the finish line to start a new lap, keep yourself positioned to the left for Paddock Hill Bend. Look for the distance marker boards on the outside of the track, and brake as you pass the 1 board. The turn falls away from you, so you can't really see it until you're already in it and heading downhill. Try not to turn in too early and keep the car on the darker part of the track surface. It should almost feel like you've turned in too early until the car is suddenly pushing to the outside of the track when exiting the corner. You'll go out to the left side of the track and keep it there as you run uphill to Druids, a simple but again unsighted hairpin. Use the bridge before the turn as a marker to slow down, and get heavy on the brakes before steering as you release the brake pedal. If you're turning the wheel a lot but the car isn't making the corner, that's a big sign of understeer, so make sure to slow down earlier on the next lap and wait to build speed until the end of the corner. Once you can see the end of the corner, ease the gas all the way down and let the car naturally fade to the left side of the road. Now instead of heading out to the right for Graham Hill Bend coming up, we'll straight line it as the road starts to go to the left. But once you pass the 1 marker board on track right, slow down in a straight line and turn in confidently to plant the tire and carry some speed through 3rd gear. Be mindful that you can run pretty wide on the curb, but go too far and you'll likely lose control of the car. On the run up to Surtees Corner, you'll need to pick a visual marker for braking. You can use the 1 marker board here, but I like to go further and brake before the nose of the car passes the start of the red and white curb on the outside. Patience is a virtue here, because the corner is longer than most people expect, and you can't quite go full throttle until you can clearly see the end of the corner. From there, it's a very fast run down the next straight and over Pilgrim's Drop. Going to Hawthorns, you can actually take this corner at high speed in 4th or 5th gear. I would brake for a moment before the one board until you feel confident taking the corner with just a slight lift, as your timing has to be correct and precise to guide the car through without any braking. You can get back on the gas almost immediately after this as well. Just make sure you use all the track on exit without going too wide to the left. From here, it gets a bit harder to see any reference points, but trust your gut and don't overdrive the car. For the next 3 turns, you're using the one board before the corner and letting the car run out as wide as possible. If the car doesn't get all the way to the inside edge of the turn at midpoint, then it's going to be very hard to set a fast lap time, or even a valid lap time if you run off the track surface. Some of the curbs, such as the inside curb at Sterling's, will try to get the car to spin, so be careful not to touch them without a plan to save the car. Finally, we get to Clark Curve, which is faster than anticipated due to just how much the radius increases, and the car loads up as you come over the crest. You can brake just before the patch of grass ends on the left, but be confident and don't brake while turning here. Let the car coast until you're sure that it will stay on track, and then you can go full throttle. And as an added tip as you floor it to the finish, if you duck down to the right before you finish your lap, it usually helps shave off an extra few hundredths, though it might mess up your next lap. Since the car is a bit lacking in power, you'll do well to put all your focus in the corners on getting the highest speed out, which sometimes means sacrificing speed at the entry or midpoint of the turn. Watch out for understeer as well, because if you're at the limit and turn too much, the front tires won't respond and you'll have to wait even longer to get the car to grip up and get back on power. All of your fundamentals will be tested as a result, and you have to be comfortable using all of the track surface. Using manual transmission is a pretty big help here, being able to control the attitude of the car on corner entry and to rev the engine to peak RPM before upshifting to the next gear. If you're having any trouble with the car spinning out, the stability control on arcade mode is very effective on this car thanks to its lightness. However, it can impact your ultimate pace if you rely on it too much. And as always, try getting out on track with other drivers, because you never know what you can learn just by following someone else's lines or identifying what they do differently. We offer $250 in prize vouchers to our podium finishers. Third place gets a voucher with enough value to cover their next 30-minute haptic session. Second place gets a voucher worth 3 30-minute sessions, and our grand prize winner gets a voucher that can cover 3 whole hours of driving. So that's one way to get a leg up on the other racers, but you can also use that credit on anything else in store, such as food and drinks, private lessons, group events, or our merchandise. Book your next session online and pick up a pair during your visit to get that competitive edge and look good doing it. But that's going to be it for our Hot Lap Challenge. Thank you all so much for watching. If you could hit the like and subscribe buttons on the video, it helps us get more informative and cool sim racing content out to you, and tells us what you guys want to see more of. My name is Blake Phillips. I'll be doing my best to set a good time on track, but until next time, we'll see you all out on the track.